Starts. A very good morning to all of you. We have gathered here today to celebrate the International Whale Shark Day. A very warm welcome to all the participants. First and foremost, chief guest of today's event, Shri Y.M.Reddy Garu, Principal Chief Conservator of Forests, Head of Forest Force, and Chief Wildlife Warden, all the senior officers who are with us today. Then we have a number of online participants, officers participating from the field, online and offline. Then we have the speakers, the guest speakers from the webinar, Ms.Clara Perez, Malaika Vaz, to Basudev Tripathy from Zoological Survey of India. A very warm welcome to all of the participants once again. Before the inaugural address by the Principal Chief Conservator of Forests, I request DFO Visakhapatnam and DFO Wildlife Management Rajahmundry to assist the chief guest in unveiling the poster marked for this occasion. I just want to describe the posters. This 4 months back. Is it all? The poster that rescued stranded whale shark in Visakhapatnam few months back. The Visakhapatnam, along with Growth Forest Company, headed this operation in Visakhapatnam, close to Anakapalli district. Whale shark the sea by a operation, giving it a fresh lease of life, and that is what conservation is all about, giving it a fresh lease of life. Now I request the Principal Chief Conservator of Forest address.
Shanti. My senior colleague, Priya, Shanti, Suman, the other officers of the department who are assembled here, the participants, especially Ms.Clara, Perez, Malaika Vaz, and Dr. Basudev Tripathy from the Zoological Survey of India. A warm welcome and a very good morning to you all. First of all, I think let me accept that I'm a recent entry into the wildlife conservation, especially of the marine type. So this is the first time I will be participating in an event. I think we'll be discussing about the and the steps taken so far for conservation of this whale shark, gentle giant of the oceans, only called the top any other. So it's the top of the ecological oceans. It's like we have a flagship terrestrial protected areas in the oceans and marine PA. I think this probably the pyramid, and I think by making an effort to conserve the shark across the waters of the globe, I think we will be by conserving vast species of marine life. So the significance is attached to this whale shark, and we celebrate this International Whale Shark Day. As you can see that in the past, I think there was a huge, before I think we had this awareness about the need to conserve the whale shark. I think it was prohibited under the IUC and Wildlife India, and also in many other countries. I think before uh, in the awareness arose about whale shark, I think there is to be rampant hunting for various purposes, including the oil from these animals. I think which is used to actually use as a sealant in other boats, and also as a culinary dish in some other countries. I think there is to be rampant hunting. But nowadays, I think after the listing of this particular species in the prohibitory list of the government, especially in India, I think the hunting has come down. What happens is mostly on account of the unintentional capture by these mechanized fishing trawls, I think, that go venture into the far seas, and also the accidental death or strangulations in the garbage that floats along the oceans. I think these two areas are, I think, are of serious concern. And the third aspect will be for the scientists and the Zoological Society of India regarding the breeding habits of this mighty species, how to encourage the proper breeding and then conservation of the younger ones, so that the population of this mighty if you call as a shark, whale shark is conserved. So first of all, in the state of Andhra Pradesh, I think we have a vast stretch of coastline of 965 kilometers. I think it gives us an opportunity, especially in two estuarine ecosystems of Krishna River and also the Godavari River. I think where I think it has been cited many a times. So the government of Andhra Pradesh, especially the AP Forest Department, jointly with the AP Fisheries Department, will be taking up steps and initiatives to actually ensure that the accidental catch of this whale shark by the fisher folk will not lead to the death of the animals. I think we will embark on a massive education. I think already it is being taken up across, but in a small and not in a very much coordinated way. Definitely, we'll take up with the AP Fisheries Department. I had a talk with the Commissioner of Fisheries on this subject, and definitely we will sensitize all the fisher folk about the need to conserve this species. So, in the first, I think, as has been done in the state of Gujarat, I think where compensation is being paid to the fishermen, I think, who caught the net and subsequently were asked to actually cut the nets and release the accidentally caught whale shark into the sea. In the state of Andhra Pradesh also will have a similar initiative moved. The second aspect is regarding the plastics, which is a big threat. I think recently in the state of Andhra Pradesh, I think on 26th of August, the Honorable Chief Minister of Andhra Pradesh, I think, had a program in Visakhapatnam. where I think you have seen the just about 3 months back, one standard whale shark was released into the sea. I think as part of the Jagannath Swachha Sankalpam, which is a program of the state government for actually ensuring that all the habitats are clean, not only the marine and then terrestrial, including the towns that should be clean. So as part of that, an MOU was signed between the government of Andhra Pradesh and the Parley for Oceans, which is a member of the Global Alliance for the Sustainable Planet, GASP. So as part of that, I think on that day, the government of Andhra Pradesh has declared a total ban in the entire state of Andhra Pradesh on use of flexi. As many of us might be knowing, while we traverse across the small towns, big towns, all alike, I think you see a plethora of flexi banners for all small and sundry events are also being they broadcast, and it's actually an ungainly sight. At the same time, after the purpose is over, I think they become a big garbage, and I think ultimately they end up in the either municipal landfills or they get washed into the water bodies, and finally they end up in the seas. I think these pose a bigger threat to the marine ecosystem as well. So this will be one step in the right direction. The banning of the flexis. And recently, Government of India announced the ban on the single-use plastics. I think together with these two, I think will be substantially reducing the generation of these plastic waste and thereby ending up in the oceans. So these two initiatives will go in a long way in actually helping our cause. And also on the same day, the citizen and the students of the city of Visakhapatnam also have taken a good drive, and I think in one day, I think in a stretch of about 28 kilometers, they could collect about 10 tons of the plastic from the beaches. So otherwise, this plastic would have been washed into the Bay of Bengal and thereby endangering all the marine fauna, including the whale sharks. So these initiatives, if they are taken up on a continued basis all along the coast, definitely this will help actually the maintenance of the healthy oceans, thereby saving the population of these whale sharks. So on this day of International Whale Shark Day, I once again congratulate Dr. Shanti Priya and her team in organizing this webinar. And I also thank all the participants who have participated in this webinar. So together, I think we will be able to make a big difference by making our oceans as healthy as possible by minimizing the use of plastics and also by educating the fish folk in actually releasing the accidentally caught whale sharks. So I once again thank you, Shanti Priya, for inviting me to this event and wish the webinar a great success. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for that insightful inaugural address. That sets the tone for the proceedings of the day, and it will also set us on a direction in which we have to move for the conservation and protection of the whale shark. Now, with reference to the Andhra Pradesh scenario, I am Dr. Shanti Priya Pandey, currently working as Additional Principal Chief Conservator of Forest Wildlife. I've just joined a couple of days back. And with reference to the International Whale Shark Day, I would like to emphasize on the conservation efforts made in the eastern coast by Andhra Pradesh. Now, dwelling on a few points with reference to the whale shark, the global distribution of this whale shark is both in the temperate seas and the tropical seas, except for the Mediterranean Sea. Now, with reference to Indian Peninsula, distribution is found both on the west and east coasts of India. On the west coast, Gujarat holds a pride of place regarding the volume of work that it is doing with reference to the conservation of the whale shark. And in the east coast, Andhra Pradesh is not left far behind. Now, this is the largest fish. Why is it called the whale shark? It is called the whale shark because of the size. It reaches up to 40 feet in length, roughly weighs around 10 to 11 tons, and has a longevity of about 150 years. They are filter feeders. In this kind of habit, it resembles the whale. The filter feeders are because it has a huge wide mouth. It leaves it open, and roughly about 6,000 liters of water an hour passes through this wide mouth, and it filter feeds basically crustaceans, small eggs, then with reference to krill and other organisms, small organisms, pass through this mouth. And not only it is called by the sobriquet of gentle giant, it is also known as the ocean nemad because it traverses a huge distance in search of food and bait. Next, please. Now, this spotting pattern is a unique characteristic feature of this whale shark. Just like the stripes of the tiger, which distinguish one individual from the other, this spotting pattern, especially on the backside of the scars in this region, identify one whale shark and differentiate from another individual. In fact, the Eco-Ocean Photo Identification Library maintains a catalog of whale sharks, the catalog of all visual photographs, and also encounters. Encounters in the sense whenever there is a direct sighting of this whale shark. So this across the world maintains the visual library of such catalog whale sharks. Next, please. Now, the Andhra Pradesh coastline, coming to the Andhra Pradesh scenario, we have a long coastline of about 9.5 kilometers, and these are the coastal districts right from Srikakulam up to Nellore. More so in Srikakulam, Visakhapatnam, and East Godavari, the landings of whale sharks are more. Next. Now, what are our approaches to the conservation and protection of whale shark? In fact, the more active documentation took place from 2015-16. With 3 partners, the Andhra Pradesh Forest Department, Wildlife Trust of India, and the IGRI Foundation. IGRI Foundation stands for East Godavari River and Estuarine Ecosystem Foundation, which has been working from the year 2013 till recently for about 2019. These 3 organizations have been instrumental in putting up a study group which had studied the entire coastline between October 2015 to April 2016, and they have covered about 555 marine villages, covering about 1,64,000 or 68,000 fishermen families. 650 interviews were conducted, and of these interviews, basically, the methodology has been collecting the traditional indigenous information, technical knowledge. Basically, the traditional indigenous information was collected by perception method, and the reports suggested that whatever the study results were, most of them are aware of the presence of this creature. About 94% of them have reported that they know about this. So this is the first step towards conservation. Half our battle is won if people are aware of such a species, of such an organism. Then the second results stated that about 50% of them have actually sighted these whale sharks across the coast. And about 11% of that is, have reported that they have sighted with their pups, the whale sharks with the pups. Now, the second battle with reference to conservation is once people are aware of conservation, people are aware of the organism, how best to take it forward with reference to conservation of the whale shark. If you ask the question to a fisher person or a fisherman whether it is illegal to hunt whale shark, and if his answer is no, then the battle crumbles at the second stage. So more awareness with reference to the protection status of this whale shark. It is protected across international organizations which have come forward to improve and protect the conservation of whale sharks in this area. We have Convention on the Conservation of Migratory Species, where it is listed in Appendix 2. It is listed in Appendix 2 of the IUCN, that is with reference to CITES, and is also included in UNCLOS, that is United Nations Convention on Law of Seas. So a number of international fora and international conventions have been taking steps to protect this whale shark. And in our own country, we have the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972, which has listed it in Schedule 1 to help conserve and protect this whale shark. Next. Now, what is this seasonal feeding aggregation sites? Basically, the whale shark is an open ocean habitat feeder. But in these 2 districts of East Godavari and Krishna, we have the seasonal feeding aggregation sites. Now, seasonal feeding aggregation sites are accommodated because of the presence of mangrove systems in this area. The estuarine ecosystems in this area support the rich mangroves, and the mangroves in turn support a rich nutrient load, and the nutrient load is also facilitated to active production centers because of the tidal upswell in these areas. Those seasonal feeding aggregation centers are supporting a rich population of whale sharks, and we find them aggregating in this area, especially towards the winter season and towards October to March, when the migration takes place from the temperate seas to the tropical seas. Next. Now, this protection is important of these two ecosystems. One is in the East Godavari estuarine ecosystem and the Krishna estuarine ecosystem. Next. Now, the spatiotemporal scale studies in this area have shown that landings have more frequently taken place in the Kakinada district, especially in the years from 2013, 14, and 15. Now, we need to take these studies forward. It is our proposal that in this particular year, that is 2022, also we need to take up similar studies to study the entire coastline where landings have been seen and reported, especially in the Visakhapatnam coast in the recent months from October to March. Recently, we have rescued 2 whale sharks, and DFO Visakhapatnam, along with this team, and with the active cooperation of the fishermen community, have been able to rescue 2 whale sharks which have been stranded across the Visakhapatnam coastline. Next. Now, this study group comprising of scientists and basically stakeholders, the Forest Department personnel, have recommended the following 3 recommendations to take the conservation effort forward. One is to increase the awareness campaigns and in-depth scientific research, considering that the whale sharks travel to huge distances and migration to track the migration routes is quite expensive and difficult, but still satellite tagging can be an option on the long-term research front. Then the coastal cleanup program, as the PCCF and Chief Wildlife Warden has been discussing about this coastal cleanup program. We have recently conducted one coastal cleanup program in the Visakhapatnam coast to keep the coast free from toxic pollutants as well as plastic and other oil spills. Next. Taking that cue from the study group, massive awareness campaigns were conducted not only in the fish landing centers. There were totally about 353 fish landing centers across the entire coastline. And in petty fish landing centers, that is in the agri region, awareness campaigns were conducted. Now, this is the effort where a fisherman he tries to cut open that net, the gill net, where the whale shark got entangled in. Now, once this net is cut open, now definitely the fisherman would be looking forward to the compensation of that gill net which has been cut open. Now, here is an incentive given by the district administration. Here we see the district collector of East Godavari district paying the compensation for the gill net that has been ripped open for allowing the rescue of the whale shark. So compensation, this has been facilitated as like in Gujarat, where compensation is being given to all such fisher folk who have cut open the gill nets to allow the whale shark to roam free. Next. The massive awareness campaigns were conducted in 48 villages, of which Agri is the main partner. Next. Now, this is something like whatever tracking the whale sharks, considering the distance they traverse, is quite a difficult option and also quite expensive because they traverse from the temperate seas to the tropical seas. So our conservation initiative should be towards tapping the traditional knowledge of the fisher folk and also giving some kind of devices. Here we have thought of developing a small app through which once the app is downloaded on the mobile, they can track. First, they register themselves on the app, and they can, whenever there's a direct sighting of the whale shark, when they move into the high seas for fishing, and such sighting can be recorded in the app, and such information can be shared with the local enforcement agencies as well as different stakeholders. Such information will help us to understand the migratory patterns of these whale sharks on the East Coast. Now, training was also imparted to about 126 mechanized fishing trawlers to the operators how to map such direct sightings. And they were also given data registers to record such information in these data registers on a pilot basis. About 52 fishing vessels operators were given this data registers to record such movements in the high seas. Such information can be taken up by various stakeholders who are operating in the high seas and help us to plug the challenges which we face in the conservation and protection of whale shark. Next. Now, this is the app, and actually we would like to make it a more robust application. And this is our plan for the future, that is from this October to March, when there's migration of the whale sharks in this coastal part of the area, in the eastern coast. we would like to make it more robust in the sense that more information can be collected, because underwater cameras can be expensive. And similarly, satellite tagging can also be expensive at this point of time. But basic information with reference to the movement of the whale sharks can be tracked through this app. Next. This is called the Marine Animals Monitoring Application. We would like to make it more robust in the coming years. Next. Once we have seen the approaches, now we can also analyze the threats and challenges. The threats are basically with reference to the marine pollution. This is one of the major threats in this conservation of and protection of the whale shark. Then the entanglement in the gill nets. Now, we are also in touch with the fisheries department, and there needs to be a policy decision and some kind of awareness and some kind of attitudinal and behavioral changes if we can transfer from gill nets to the long line nets. And another important problem is this accidental bycatch or the incidental catches. Now, whale sharks, a major part of these landings in the Kakinada coast or in the Visakhapatnam or in Nellore are these accidental bycatches. And because of these accidental bycatches, most of them get entangled in nets. And as a result, they reach the landing centers and they look gruesome when they reach the landing centers. Then the marine habitat degradation. Habitat degradation is because of the various aspects of rise of ocean temperatures. It usually prefers temperature between 28 to 32 degrees. And if the temperatures are high, then the migration from the temperate seas and to the tropical seas is also halted. So keeping the habitat intact, because these are busy ocean routes, especially the eastern coast. After Indonesia, India is the second country with the maximum number of marine fishing. So we are second in the world with reference to marine fishing. And this actually causes a lot of movement on the high seas with regard to the fishing operations. Apart from this, because of the major ports and other shipping, commercial shipping lines operational in these high seas, it causes a lot of habitat degradation. And unless we map the migratory patterns and in which season the migration is more, and if we can alert the various stakeholders about the migratory pattern so that certain gaps in these challenges can also be tackled. Then another important aspect which reference to the strandings by the whale sharks is by boat hits and also by striking of by the vessels as trawlers. They get hit by boats when they move in their and when they move across the oceans. Whenever they come across a boat or a trawler, sometimes they get hit in this movement, and these strandings occur, and they finally reach the coastline. And this is what we have seen recently in Visakhapatnam. In fact, a stranding which has taken place in Anapkapalli, part of Visakhapatnam district. Now it is also another district. They have seen that stranding has taken place. And whatever, there are two main reasons for stranding. One is the boat hit, and the other is with reference to the beachings of the whale shark. The beachings of the whale shark also occur due to injury or some kind of sickness or some kind of sickness or some kind of injury also actually allows the whale shark to commit suicide. Actually, this is called a suicidal kind of death. And whenever an injury or an illness a whale or a whale shark usually faces, they generally get beached to the coastline so that they want to die. And this is called the whale suicide or the whale shark kind of suicide. So the stranding, whenever it occurs, usually we have seen in the coastline, most of these fisher folk are quite adaptive to protect these whale sharks. And usually what they do is they gather around the coastline. And in fact, when the word goes around the coastline, a lot of stakeholders reach the coast. And it is a cooperative effort of such a stranded whale shark to be heaved back into the sea or towed back into the sea. And once the towing is done, it moves back into the high seas. Then the other challenges are with reference to the convergence among the stakeholders. This is not a reality. The difficulty is because keeping all these stakeholders together, making them meet and discuss the challenges. One of the major important stakeholders is the fisheries department. Then we have the forest department, the marine and coast guard. Then we have the post commercial shippings. Apart from this, the local communities, the fisher community, the self-help groups. Then we have the educational organizations. Then we have the scientific organizations and other professional organizations. All these stakeholders need to meet more frequent to understand and spread awareness about the conservation of whale shark. Then another important and difficult kind of initiative that needs to be taken is with reference to studying the long-term behavior with reference to the distribution, ecology, and status of the whale sharks. And this is only possible if we collaborate with these scientific organizations. And we are not actually we are not equipped for facing that kind of eventuality at the present juncture. But in the long run, we want to work in collaboration with the Wildlife Trust of India to take this process forward. Next. Now, these are the whale shark landings in the Igri region. Now, these are gruesome pictures of getting entangled in the nets or for various reasons. They've been brought to the landing site and they're cut open for their gills, they cut open for their shark fins. Actually, the whale shark, the liver is the most important organ of that organism because it is known for its oil, and this oil is used for waterproofing of the boats. Now, these are some of the landings which took place in the Igri region, and this is something, it is a worrisome picture. Whenever you see such gruesome pictures, it strikes a bell that something has to be done on this front to conserve and protect the whale shark. Next. Now, after going through all these things and after the recommendations given by the study group, now we have to look at what are the short-term and the long-term strategies for conservation. The short-term can be awareness camps. As a first step, if you are aware of the whale shark presence, then what is the next step that needs to be taken? Then you have to protect it, put a strong law enforcement system in place, and training to the stakeholders, because not many people are actually aware of the whale shark and what to do about its conservation and protection. They may be aware of the species in general, but with reference to the conservation and protection, what exactly has to be done, and that needs a lot of discussions and brainstorming sessions to take the conservation effort forward. The enforcement with reference to the marine policing, with reference to the Coast Guard, and also with reference to the AP Forest Department, because it is listed in Schedule 1 of the Wildlife Protection Act 1972. So this enforcement for its protection is equally important. Then frequent convergence meeting with all the stakeholders, as I've listed about the stakeholders. All these stakeholders have to come, especially the coastal districts. Periodic meetings with these stakeholders will help to take the initiative forward. Then with reference to the scientific organizations, the number of scientific organizations working in this field, especially the Zoological Survey of India. Then we have the various NGOs which are working on this particular thing. And with reference to the West Coast and East Coast, we can learn lessons from the Gujarat Conservation Program, and definitely learning from Gujarat Conservation Program, probably on the East Coast, when Andhra Pradesh is standing in the forefront, and West Bengal also has seen certain landings of whale sharks. So these are two important states which are also having major fishing operations. Both these states can learn from the Gujarat experience, and also on the East Coast have similar initiatives to protect the whale shark. Long-term behavioral studies with reference to the whale shark, because it traverses vast distances. It is very difficult and expensive to track their migratory routes, but satellite tagging can be an option in the long run. And we have to tie up with the scientific partners. WWF has done considerable work in this sector, especially in Philippines. They could tackling about satellite tag about 358 individuals in Philippines. And that is one of the recent studies where cataloging of whale sharks has been done. In fact, the first ID of whale shark was done in the Gujarat coast by the Eco-Ocean. Eco-Ocean has ID'd the first whale shark in the Gujarat coast. It was given a ID number of 1001. And similarly, with reference to the Andhra Pradesh state, if we can start cataloging whale sharks with the partners in the scientific field, probably we can take this conservation effort forward. Next. Long-term scientific research is the only way forward. Still, we are lacking in a lot of information. Our information is still, in the sense, it is in the rudimentary stage, in the initial stages of scientific, we are still in the initial stages of scientific research, and definitely with other partners, we can take this program forward. And probably in the years to come, something like a collaborative effort with the scientific organizations will definitely help us in this initiative. And if you have some questions at this point of time, or you can share your suggestions or comments in the chat box section, we'll be gladly taking those questions and also at the same time addressing the concerns raised in this chat box so that we can address your issues. Thank you. Now we have a short video of a rescue operation. Vizag DFO Visakhapatnam has rescued 2 whale sharks in the Vizag coastline between the months of November to March. And he would just share those 2 videos now. Thank you. I request the to share a words on this rescue operation.
Next, last. Thank you, ma'am, for the insightful presentation. These 2 videos are of a recent stranded whale shark which was rescued successfully by the Forest Department. The entire credit goes to the fisher community. One thing I would like to mention here is that the Andhra Pradesh Forest Department has been running a highly successful turtle conservation program, and because of that, the program is basically being run in coordination with the local fisher community. So the program is being run in coordination with the local fisher community, and wherein we have coordinated with the fisher community, trained them, provided them basic trainings regarding the basic conservation works which they have to take for turtle conservation. And because of that, what has happened is that has become an alternate livelihood source for the fisher community, which we provide them for almost 5 to 6 months a year. These are again the community which is like the most downtrodden and the poorest of the poor. So livelihood options for them for 6 months is a big thing, and that too next to their homes when they don't have to venture out into the high seas also. Now with that thing, what has happened is the awareness regarding other marine species has also come in the fisher community. These are the fishermen who are very well aware about the scheduled species, especially the marine species in the Wildlife Protection Act, and that killing them also will attract some penalties and punishments to them. And because of that, what has happened is that any sort of stranding, especially what I have observed in my previous postings in the East Godavari district coast, Krishna coast, as well as in Visakhapatnam coast, that any instance of whale shark stranding has come to the notice of our department immediately, and somehow because of that we could take immediate steps, and the fishermen themselves played a crucial role in rescuing of the whale sharks. And in turn, subsequently, we have as a positive incentive, we have provided them the compensation also for the rescues as well as rewards to them, so that that acts as a positive factor for in future also for rescuing of any of these animals. So this was the case, and in the present video and photograph with the poster also which we have released today, the photograph shows almost 27 fishermen who put in efforts for almost 5 hours, and then a whale shark individual which was a sub-adult of 18 feet long was rescued successfully. Now taking the program forward, I would take my privilege to introduce and invite Ms.Clara Perez, Operations Manager, Maldives Whale Shark Research Program. Giving a brief intro about Ms. Clara, she comes from a small island in Spain, Mallorca. She grew up spending most of her time in the sea with her family. Studying and observing megafauna was her childhood dream and led her to an undergraduate in environmental sciences and then an MSc in marine ecology. She's a part of the Maldives Whale Shark Research Program, which carries out whale shark research and fosters community-focused conservation initiatives in the Maldives. She first joined the MWSRP as a volunteer in 2016 and has been working for the program since then. She is currently the operations manager. She also works for another organization called Alnitak Research Institute, dedicated to the conservation and protection of marine ecosystems in the Mediterranean Sea. Ms.Clara is going to present information regarding the biology, ecology, conservation of the species, citizen science initiatives in the Maldives, and threats. Her topic is gentle giants, using the Maldives as a case study. Yeah, the floor is yours, Ms. Clara.
Thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you for having me today. So yeah, I work for the Maldives Whale Shark Research Program. The Maldives Whale Shark Research Program is a UK charity and Maldivian NGO. We started off in 2006, and we seek to advance in the field of whale shark knowledge and carry out sound conservation policies in the Maldives. We have the whale shark. Rhincodon typus would be its scientific name. So it's the largest extant fish, although there's still significant gaps in our understanding of its behavior and ecology. It is closely related to bottom-dwelling sharks. Its closest relative would be the tawny nurse shark. So it has two types of camouflage from what we can see from this picture. So the spots and stripes would be disruptive coloration, and then the counter shading would be this difference in skin coloration between the dorsal surface and the ventral surface. This is used in a defense manner and very important during the early stages of life. So then we would have the first dorsal fin, second dorsal fin, the caudal fin. It's asymmetrical, therefore heterocercal. And then we have huge pectoral fins, which project horizontally. The eye is located in the anterolateral corner of the individual. It's only 1% of its total length. And because of its relatively small eyes, we do think that whale sharks depend very little in vision compared with other senses, such as the olfaction. It can track swimmers from 3 to 5 meters away from the animal. And then very recently, marine biologists from Japan, they discovered that the eyes of the whale shark are also covered with dermal denticles like their body. And this is helping in reducing the mechanical damage to the eye. Then whale sharks have a very largely and highlighted, cerebellum, foliated cerebellum. So the high levels of foliation would indicate that we have ideal prey capture and habitat dimensionality. Then if we observe the whale shark, we can see that it has these lines. These are called the longitudinal ridges, these ridges. So it has 7 ridges on its sides. It's creating 6 fluid flow channels over its body, and it's modifying its hydrodynamic characteristics. So whale sharks are cartilaginous elasmobranch fish. There's 33,000 fish in our rivers, lakes, and oceans. 1,100 of them would be cartilaginous fish. So distribution, so as it was mentioned in the previous presentation, they have a circumglobal distribution between the tropical waters and warm temperate seas, tropics of Cancer, tropics of Capricorn, although they can also be observed, for instance, in South Africa, where it was first scientifically registered in 1828, and in the Azores off the coast of Portugal. So by 1985, so this is like 150 years after they were first sighted, there were only 320 records of this species. Currently, in the Wild Book for Whale Sharks, which is the worldwide database for whale sharks, there's over 13,000 individuals registered in the database. There's sightings in 54 countries, and there's over 30 hotspots where we can encounter, or where we have registers of over 100 encounters. They are not regarded as social animals, although we do see there's aggregations which could be driven to planktonic food sources and local blooms of phytoplankton or spawning of fishes and corals. So most of the coastal aggregations are dominated by males, juvenile. So therefore, there's a very strong male bias. They are highly mobile species. So for instance, in Galapagos, they were able to sustain average movement rates of 67 kilometers per day as an example. And then Galapagos is an area of importance because over 98% of the individuals cited are female. Okay, there's areas where we could have also year-round aggregations, such as the Maldives as an example. And up until 2012, there was only 19 neonate references in the literature, in the scientific literature, therefore small whale sharks. Whale sharks are endangered species. They were first listed in the IUCN in the year 2000, listed as vulnerable. And in 2016, they were given a more severe listing. So they are now endangered individuals. So 75% of the population is inferred to occur in the Indo-Pacific and 25% in the Atlantic. There was a decrease, so given the bulk of the global population is in the Indo-Pacific, the overall global decline was inferred to be 50%, therefore endangered. Luckily, we have now that most countries are recognizing the value of these living species, such as the Maldives, citing their value in ecotourism, being one of the main 3 points for declaring them a protected species in 1995. Do whale sharks have teeth? In the Maldives, we have a lot of tourists visiting the area, and they always ask us, would they bite us? Well, whale sharks do have teeth. They're very, very small teeth. They have up to 3,000 teeth, 2 millimeters long. Their function, they could be there to help grip for the male during mating. Of course, they could also be an evolutionary relic. And then the skin is covered by these dermal denticles called placoid scales, and they're helping and giving them an extremely hydrodynamic surface. Reproductive anatomy. So how do we know if an individual would be immature? So it could give us sort of an estimation, right? So if the claspers do not extend beyond the anterior trailing of the pelvic fin, this could be an immature male, generally individuals which are less than 9 meters in length, estimated to be less than 25 years, although in the scientific literature, it was seen that some individuals ranging from 8.2 to 10.3 were already mature individuals. Mature males, when claspers would pass the pelvic fins, estimated over 9 meters, roughly 25 years in age. Females, absence of claspers. And then when we see images of mature females, we sometimes think that if we see this like bump, this belly, it could mean that they are pregnant, but unfortunately, there's no known external indicators for female maturity. So size would be the major factor, as pregnant females are generally over 10 meters in length. Therefore, the bump is an unreliable indicator of pregnancies. Whale sharks are ovoviparous. Okay, so in 1955, we had like this large egg case, which was containing a nearly full-term embryo. It was one of the sole references of information for us to know more about the reproduction of the species. But then in 1995, a female was harpooned by a fisherman in Taiwan. And this female was carrying 304 embryos in different development stages. So data does suggest that females could be storing sperm after single mating events. It happens also in other species too. And we have a lot of key questions remaining, so a lot to study. So how big could whale sharks get? There's references of 18.8 meters. Projections of whale sharks living up to 130 years, estimated maturity 25 years. This is specifically with data from the Maldives, from the area where we work. And then they are very deep diving species. They have been recorded in depths of 1,928 meters, but of course they could even dive deeper, but there's no specialized tags for that, or at least there hasn't been for now any reports of it. This is the age and growth study we carried out in the Maldives. So if we say that normally what we encounter in coastal aggregations is individuals which are 5.5 meters in length, if we check this graph, then we already can see that an individual 5.5 meters in length would be less than 20 years in age. So the Maldives. So as I said, we work specifically for the Maldives. We work in a location called Sampa, which is marine protected area. It's the secondary nursery location for whale sharks. We have juvenile whale sharks, male. We have one of the highest site fidelities in the world, high resighting rates. We have individuals which have been encountered over 300 times in 10 years, for instance. We do have inter-atoll movements registered on a yearly basis. And then there are different demographics to the rest of the Maldives in the south of the country. So of course we are normally working in the same area. We are a very limited team, but there's a lot of areas to explore too, and more to discover, specifically from whale sharks from the Maldives. And what we're seeing is that there's no seasonality. So Sardari Marine Protected Area has a year-round presence. Therefore, one of the only places in the world where you could encounter whale sharks on a yearly basis. So this is the information we have as of today. So for the database of the Maldives, we have 647 whale sharks registered, photo ID images. We have over 7,000 encounters logged. 72% of the sharks would be males, and the average size is 5.5, 5.3. Depends, every day it changes. We have a lot of encounter information arriving on a daily basis, but it always remains between 5.5, 5.8. Information regarding 2021, so from our scientific report from last year, 17 whale sharks made inter-atoll movements in 2021. Then we had 660 encounters, and 89% of these encounters were provided to us by contributors. So this is people who are part of the citizen science network we have, which is called the Big Fish Network. And then average duration for whale shark encounters: evasive, cruising, inquisitive, evasive. So when an individual is evasive in an encounter, the average estimated duration is 5.9 minutes. So this is a very short encounter. If you think about everyone who visits the country, a lot of people come and visit whale sharks, and if they pay to go out and see a whale shark, some of their encounters could last 5 minutes, some of their encounters could last 30 seconds. So, as I said, 660 encounters last year. Most of the encounters were in Sardari Atoll, which is this year-round presence, and then we would have Ba Atoll, which has a seasonal aggregation, mainly driven by food. There's a lot of plankton available in the area where they aggregate, called Hanifaru Bay, also very known for manta ray sightings. This is Sardari Marine Protected Area. It was declared Marine Protected Area in 2009. There are regulations, but there's no actual management plan and no enforcement. It's 42 square kilometers, so it is a large area, therefore very, very difficult to monitor too, with a lot of operators visiting the area, not only from Sardari Atoll, but also we have vessels coming from other atolls in the Maldives. So we have operators coming from guest houses, we have from resorts too. Why are whale sharks in Sardari Marine Protected Area? So there's very deep waters just outside the marine protected area, and our assumption is that the whale sharks are spending time in the surface waters thermoregulating, so they are cold-blooded animals. So they are only 15% of these encounters we have are whale sharks feeding at the surface, so they would most likely be feeding in deeper waters and just coming up to thermoregulate. And we see this because most of the times they're just cruising very, very slowly. These are some of the inter-atoll movements of this specific individual, Pishke, so Sardari, and then went to Ba Atoll, for instance. So there's different behaviors which can be classified, so I'm just going to go through them very quickly. We have cruising. This would be the most observed behavior, very slow, moving very gently. Feeding, two types of feeding. There's a very passive way of feeding, not much energy is required. Most of the times this is the type of feeding we are seeing in the marine protected area. And then suction feeding. So when it does find a big mass of plankton, then it would use more of its energy and suction feed. Inquisitive behavior. This is when a whale shark is very interested in knowing what is around it and would normally like swim towards you or go to the propeller of the boat and go and see bubbles of divers. This normally happens with individuals which are new to the area. So normally when you see like a smaller individual, like 5 meters in length, and following this behavior, we would already think that it's a new individual just arrived to the area. And then as soon as they spend more time in the marine protected area, I think they start becoming more evasive. Unfortunately, they are also more prone to injuries too and being touched by humans. Then interaction, we see this very rarely. Normally, as I said, they are solitary animals unless they aggregate for food purposes or mating, which has never been recorded. And evasive. More of this behavior is being seen nowadays because of the breaching of the code of conduct. Normally, the whale shark would bank, I sort of give you its side, and then start diving down. Another image here of how the whale shark's behavior was disrupted by bubbles of divers. It not always happens. Sometimes you do have inquisitive whale sharks, but sometimes they do present evasive behaviors. Banking. This whale shark had just recovered from an injury. If you can see, we had people swimming too close to it. Therefore, it sort of gave us its side, banking. And eyeball retraction. Specifically, this person in the video had had just got too close to the whale shark, and it was sort of protecting its eye from mechanical damage. So these are all signs of which you should be aware if we're swimming with a whale shark, for instance, in order not to disrupt its natural behavior. There is this code of conduct for whale sharks in Maldivian waters. So no touching. This is generally it's the same guidelines in other countries too. So it's the basic: no touching, no flash photography, keep 3 to 4 meter distance, no obstruction, no swimming on top of the whale sharks, and reduce noise. So our ongoing research is monitoring the population, taking the identification shots, taking the injury pictures too, as well as the environmental variables, behavioral observation, both of the humans in the water and whale sharks. So we have different factors that we're assessing of how a human is behaving in the water, same with boats, if boats are getting too close to a whale shark, and how the whale shark is behaving to those human disturbance behaviors. We're also logging all the vessels we encounter along the reef. We're writing down the number of people on board, name of the vessel, activity, if it's diving, if they're snorkeling, where they're coming from to. This way we can also know the impact of tourism as well as the economic revenue of the activity for the country. On a different note, there's the natural predators. Orcas would be one of the predators for fully grown individuals and for smaller sized individuals. Tiger sharks, there's also been seen in stomach contents of blue sharks, for instance. Global threats, we have already spoken about a few of these. Most take place on an unregulated black market basis. A whale shark could be sold for $20,000 US, for instance. Their fins, 30,000 for the animal. Being used for their fins. Liver oil too, this is one of the uses before in the Maldives, so it was banned in 1995, and same, it was also, the liver oil was also used to waterproof the vessels, the traditional vessels of the Maldives. Other uses, in some countries they would have their meat to make leather bags, their skin, and for shoe polishing. Going back to Sampa, we have very busy encounters happening. So we've seen a sharp increase in visitation numbers to the marine protected area. There's been a link in the decrease in whale shark sightings. And currently the government is working on a management plan. Of course, COVID-19 hasn't helped. It has delayed everything. There has been, economically, the country has had to recover too slowly after COVID-19, but we're hoping for the management plan to be released soon. And most likely by the end of this year, we will have rangers in the area. Of course, this does not always happen, but you could encounter in high season encounters like this one. I've been in encounters with only 3 people, 10 people, but then I've also been in encounters with 100, 150 people. Currently, the regulation states that there can only be 80 people in the water and 5 vessels. This was another very busy encounter. There was only 1 whale shark there. And then, yeah, we see all these sort of behaviors underwater. You see touching. I would say people are becoming more and more aware. Guides are very aware of the guidelines. They're very interested too in providing the correct information to their guests. But I also know that there's a lot of guests who you inform them about what the code of conduct is, and they're like, they see a whale shark and they just go wild, and they wouldn't like follow the guidelines. Threats in the Maldives, unfortunately, this is our major threat. Not the fishing, for instance. Net fishing is banned in the Maldives, so unfortunately we don't have that. Well, there's bait fishing with nets, but there's no like other types of fishing. Therefore, injuries, and these are all due to boat strikes. So it's mainly boats which are visiting the aggregation areas. So we have seen a very, very sharp increase in the percentage of injured sharks. Residents, so whale sharks that tend to stay in the marine protected area, present more injuries than the non-residents. 66% of them presented injuries, abrasions, and lacerations would be the most common. So of course, this can affect the residency behaviors, could have sublethal effects, could have an influence in their fitness, reproduction, feeding ecology, and survival. And luckily, whale sharks do have a very rapid healing rate, as well as other sharks, but this shouldn't be a reason to continue speeding in the marine protected area. The speed limit is 10 knots, but unfortunately, there's a lot of speedboats who do not follow these guidelines. Identification, we have already spoken about this in a previous presentation, so I'll go through this very quickly. We use, for instance, I3S, which of course is very similar to EcoOcean, the Wild Book for Whale Sharks. They also have this identification software. And we additionally have our local database, which is called the Big Fish Network. We have over 160 registered members. These are contributors, so we have resorts, guest houses, liveaboards, conservation groups, and what they do is we provide them with our encounter sheet, so the information we log on our surveys, and they have the same form, and they can collect this data for us. So as we can see from this graph, on the light blue, we would have encounters provided by Big Fish Network members. So last year, 89% of the encounters, as mentioned earlier, came from citizen science initiatives. Fernando has been the most cited shark in the database. Now it's over 350 times. It's almost 8 meters in length, so I guess that he will leave the area soon. He'll become a mature individual and just leave. And yeah, how can you help? Of course, contribute to citizen science, follow environmental policies, do not litter, try and reduce the use of plastic, help share the message, help spread awareness. And these are some of the outreach initiatives we had last year. So we have all these training programs for Big Fish Network contributors, partners we have, local partners. We have our own scientific expeditions. We have school initiatives too, where the students join us on board. So yeah, we are more than welcome to collaborate with anyone who is interested in our work. So now we have one of our staff members is on a liveaboard, another one is carrying out research expeditions. I'm now participating with you guys now. And yeah, we are just 4 staff members for now, and most of us with other part-time roles too. And now just very quickly, we're going to have a nationwide campaign called Be Gentle to Giants. It will start in December, and we're hoping to have most of the resorts, liveaboards, and guest houses involved, and we're trying to release a new code of conduct film in order to see if the situation can improve. So we cannot just wait for the management plan to be implemented. We just have to, all of us, start and build this sense of stewardship in the area already, although there's already a lot of awareness and a lot of people very, very engaged in conserving these gentle giants. Well, thank you very much. This is a presentation for today. So sorry that I went very quickly, but there's so much information that I would have liked to share with you.
So, Clara, a quick point. Great
Yeah.
visuals. In fact, great visuals. And in fact, do you have something on whale shark ecotourism? Something like Australia?
As in, what would you mean?
Do you promote ecotourism of whale sharks? I mean, do you have tourism centers promoting whale shark ecotourism?
Yeah. I mean, of course, yes. Like I would say.
Can you share a few points on that?
Yeah, I would say like all these, so people who are part of the Big Fish Network, these contributors, so all these people are really interested in carrying out ecotourism activities, and they would, for instance, what we do when they join this partnership, we give them training for their guides, and then we give them all the visuals so that the guides have posters to present to the guests too. And we give them like a guide for whale sharks, which is like a 50-page document too. And of course, like I would say, mostly everyone is very interested in carrying out all these ecotourism activities. And just today, for instance, Visit Maldives, which is like a big platform to promote tourism in the Maldives. The focus today is ecotourism and how to foster our gentle giants. So there's a lot of emphasis. I just think currently there's a lot of operators, and until the management plan doesn't come into place, it's going to be very difficult to control how many people do engage in a whale shark encounter if, for instance, there's just one shark seen during the day.
To have you here, Clara. And
Thank you.
that was, in fact, a very insightful kind of presentation. We'll take this forward. We will not end it here. And definitely we'll be sharing notes and doing some more brainstorming sessions over the year ahead. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. I'll just stop sharing.
Thank you. Thank you, Clara. Now we have our next speaker, Dr. Basudev Tripathy. He is a scientist in the Zoological Survey of India, Western Region Center, Pune. Dr. Tripathy, his research interest includes biodiversity, communal ecology, taxonomy, ecosystem services, sustainable management of natural resources, and biodiversity impact assessment. He has also special interest on marine ecology and has developed protocols for monitoring faunal resources of coastal and marine ecosystem. He is a member of IUCN Species Survival Group for marine turtles and horseshoe crab. He has published more than 100 publications as peer-reviewed research papers, book chapters, and books. He is also reviewer of national and international peer-reviewed scientific journals. He was awarded Duke University Marine Laboratory Global Fellows as well as Jawaharlal Nehru Fund Fellowship for the research work on marine ecology. Dr. Tripathy will be speaking on the topic Whale Shark Conservation in India, Challenges and Opportunities. Yeah, so Dr. Tripathy.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Am I audible and my slides are visible? Sir?
You are audible, Dr. Tripathy.
Yes.
Am I audible?
Yes. You are audible. You are audible, Dr. Tripathy. Your slide is not visible right now.
Yeah, is the slide visible now?
Yeah, please start.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, and thank you, madam, for giving me this opportunity for speaking on the International Whale Shark Day today. Although I'm not an expert on whale sharks, but I have been involved in marine conservation for last 20 odd years. And so far as whale sharks are concerned, before taking to the challenges and opportunity, I would like to emphasize on generalized on the shark and rays of the world and India in general. Like we have nearly 509 different species of sharks, and 430 million years old. They are like evolutionary point of view. So far as Indian shark diversity is concerned, we have 88 species that has been documented in India by ZSI and other organizations out of the 500 found globally. And this includes the deep sea sharks, the oil sharks, the skate and rays, the deep sea skates. And normally we get all the sharks and rays either in the shallow waters or in the deep waters. Shallow water, this is most common. What you get is either a torpedo or a stingray or the dogfish shark. And then when you go to the deep water, you had a very array of species of shark which are caught in the deep sea trawlers, and this includes also many gigantic sharks. So far as fishery of sharks is concerned, we have these 5 different families dominated in terms of shark fisheries in India and elsewhere also. And you can see a scene like this if you go to fishing harbor in the west coast of India. You have like dumping of the sharks in seasons, like different species, and size varies from 100 kgs and more also. So the sharks are overfished for meat, mainly for drying shark fins. Shark product as meat are also very popular nowadays, and but mostly what you see in fishing harbor or in the fishing areas, the coastal part of India, is shark fin, which are cut from the body and dried, which are used in the soup industries, and also not limited to the shark fins. Now shark meat is a delicacy. Shark jaws are also used. See, this is how it is utilized. The shark is cut and they made into pieces, and shark jaw also in the process. Like the liver oil is processed from the shark, fat. And so basically, if you look at the shark product, either it is used, the jaws is used, it is used as liver oil or as dried salted meat. So it has a commercial and pharmaceutical use. It has bycatch. It is of course it was a bycatch fishery in the past, but now it is a targeted fisheries. And India is one of the leading shark fishing nation in the world, positioning second after Indonesia as per the FAO report of 2009. And it catches more than 50,000 tons per year. So if you look at the European Commission, they have identified India as the second largest after Indonesia. Although the catch reduced after 1991 and more specifically after the ban of sharks, fin and other products by the Marine Product Export Development Authority in 2015. So there has been reduction in the catch of sharks immediately after the enforcement. So also several species of sharks are included in the Appendix 2 of CMS. There are also included in the Appendix 1 of CMS, including in CITES 1 and 2, CITES 2 of the Appendix, wherein whale sharks is also included. So if you look at globally, like 10% of the taxa which are reviewed among the sharks, they are either critically endangered or they are low risk, near threatened. So there is very limited knowledge on their biology, as Clara was clarified a few minutes before, and we don't have much information on their biology, and there is a growing international concern over the possible effect of this continued exploitation of marine, the sharks and their role in the food chain. So far as shark and rays are concerned, we have only limited information. As I said, the CMFRA report goes back to 1980s about the shark fisheries fishing in India. Then the Marine Product Export Development Authority's report on shark trade. Then WWF Traffic India conducted an excellent study on the trade in sharks and shark product. And thereafter, of late in 2002, the MOEFCC, the government of India brought sharks, several species of shark under schedule, although it was revised later on. And very recently, like I can say, immediately after that, the sharks of India and identification sheet was prepared by ZSI, because before that we are not having any information on the sharks of India. So why should we care for sharks? Sharks are important in maintaining healthy ecosystem. Evidence that there are ecosystem consequences of shark population decline. If there is a population decline of sharks, it ultimately impact the food chain and the food web of the marine ecosystem. So sharks and rays are also keystone species, just like tiger in the ecosystem. Sharks are a keystone species in the ocean, and their indiscriminate killing impact consequently the marine ecosystem. So far as shark life history is concerned, already it was like briefly mentioned, but I would like to again inform that they are long-lived species. They grow very slow. They mature very late in their life, and because of their long gestation period, they reproduce very less in number and vulnerable to overexploitation, and because of that the recovery is also very slow. Now comes to the glimpses of the whale shark. The whale shark is the largest living fish in the world so far documented. It weighs about 12 tons, feed mainly on plankton, and it is believed that whale sharks may live a lifespan of 100 plus years. So global distribution, already Clara has described about the global distribution of whale sharks, but they are in the tropic and warm temperate waters of Atlantic, Indo-Pacific region. So basically they have a shark global distribution throughout the world. Genetically, there are two populations exist. The population has declined over 50% in the last 75 years, and IUCN has listed them at endangered species. Countries like us, Australia, Maldives, Philippines, US, are also protecting sharks because of their endangered category. Shark mostly feed on, they are filter feeder, and they take about 6,000 liters of water each hour. So these are these population like in Western Australia, Northern Mexico, Philippines, all these countries, have been studies on the food and feeding behavior of sharks. They are migratory species, and so far as satellite telemetry is concerned, they have been tracked at least up to 13,000 kilometers from Gulf of California. And feeding aggregation in India, as all knows that it takes place in the west coast of India, in Gujarat, and as well as in the Andhra Pradesh coast. Each individual can be distinguished from their persistent natural spot pattern in the body, just like tiger. Many return to subsequent year in the same location year after year. The unique pattern in movement of shark shows that the whale sharks move slowly at 5 kilometers per hour only. The adults are often found feeding at the surface, but they may go up to 1,000-meter depth. So that itself is very interesting. And they are solitary creatures. They often share their feeding grounds with other whale sharks also, although. So the misidentification of whale sharks with other sharks for a layman is like the tiger sharks look the same, the bowmouth, the guitar fish looks the same. But as I said, they are, the body pattern is unique. So whale sharks have distinguished light yellow marking on their body, so it can be easily distinguished from other species of shark, although it may be a juvenile also. So far whale shark hunting is concerned in India, before it is considered under the Wildlife Protection Act 1972 in 2000. So 79 instances of whale shark landing took place up to 2001 record, and by 1990 it was a targeted fishing in Veraval, Gujarat. Even the small juvenile and whale shark landing used to be happening right now also in many parts of the east coast and west coast of India. However, the conservation obligation is that whale shark is now listed in the CITES, UNCLOS, and CMS, and because of which also as part of the MOEFCC, it is a Schedule 1 species under the Wildlife Protection Act. So there is a little bit, relaxation for the sharks to live, and because of this, they are now a protected species. The opportunity for whale shark conservation in India is that being a signatory of international convention and conservation obligation, India can showcase its commitment towards conservation of nature and natural resources, and whale shark as a flagship species, it can showcase its activities in India. It can also invite opportunity for international funding for research on whale shark, which is a although we talk about a lot about whale shark, but so far as information on their life history is concerned, we need very little. So we can generate a lot of funding through whale shark conservation, and also in return it help other species like sea turtles and dolphin and other marine mammals also. There is a community mobilization through conservation, which is also an opportunity for a country like India. Unless there is a community involvement, we can't protect in cellulose. And awareness toward conservation of whale shark, which is already Gujarat, there is a huge program, and also in Andhra Pradesh through the government of Andhra Pradesh, the forest department has a quite a good amount of awareness that has been created for whale shark. And as Madam was talking about ecotourism, whale shark watch program can be initiated in country like India. We can learn from other countries where there is a good population of whale shark. and this in result economy with ecology. The challenges for whale shark conservation is that much of the whale shark population, they exist outside the protected area, and it is difficult to manage a marine reel is very difficult, particularly for the forest department and the wildlife department. The population data is crucial as we do not have much information and we know very little about whale shark population. So unless we know what is a vital population, what is a viable population to survive, we will not able to go further. And their biology and behavior are also very much required to be known. People perception about whale sharks, because everybody do not think like the people of Andhra Pradesh or Gujarat, the other parts of India, there are illegal hunting still going on to some extent. And unless we create an alternate livelihood for those who were hunting or who are in the job of hunting whale sharks and other sharks, we will not able to make success in our effort. So what can be done is that, first of all, to protect these species, identify coastal and marine habitat as no investment industry, and therefore they should be effectively protected. Community involvement is very much required. Scientific research and monitoring is a continuous process, and we must go ahead, promoting this, and policy and legal level support, as the government of Andhra Pradesh, government of Gujarat, and other states are also into it. So we must have a policy level intervention for protection of these poor sharks in our country. So thank you. This is brief about my presentation.
Sir, what are the initiatives being taken by the Zoological Survey of India with reference to the migratory patterns of these whale sharks? Anything being done?
Ma'am, as in Zoological Survey of India, our work is more focused into the taxonomical identification, and we, like as I said, that we need to identify between whale shark and other species how confusion they are in the field. Like if you get an adult whale shark, it is fine, but many of the time you get juvenile. So juvenile whale shark, it can be commonly mistaken with other sharks. So ZSI's job is to make awareness and to the coastal fisher folk about identifying whale sharks and other sharks. So our work is mostly into the taxonomic, clarifying the taxonomic confusion.
Do you have any idea about how many scientific organizations are working on whale sharks? Apart from the NGOs we have, like Wildlife Trust of India, WWF.
Unfortunately, we do not have many agencies who works on whale shark conservation or their basic biology and behavior in this country, which is very much vital for saving this species. Like for example, we under the umbrella of the MOEFCC, we have, I think we are the only organization who are into the taxonomy of sharks at least. But other than that, I do not know any other organization who are working on whale shark or any other sharks also in this country, like government organizations so far as concerned. We have National Institute of Oceanography, we have NIOT, we have CMLRE, we have several marine organizations in this country. I think they should come forward and help this poor animal.
Research projects, any scientists working on this?
Long back, CMFRE was collecting information on whale sharks and other sharks, but that again it was limited to the landing on the beach only. Like we have never ventured into the sea. As I said, the effort is really challenging, and we really have to progress on this, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your time and for being with us today.
Thank you, ma'am, for the opportunity given.
Thank you, Dr. Basudev Tripathy. It was really an insightful presentation on the theoretical aspects related to taxonomy of the sharks and the amount of illegal trade and the violation of the acts which are happening related to the marine conservation in India. I hope we can take forward the expertise from the ZSI and the other institutions working at national international level and do something concrete in field for effective conservation of the whale sharks and other marine species. Next, I invite Ms. Malaika Vaz. She is the last of our guest speakers, but I guess the youngest one also at the same time. She's a filmmaker, a net geo explorer, and founder of Untamed Planet. Ms. Vaz is a wildlife filmmaker, television presenter, and National Geographic explorer. She is the founder and creative director of Untamed Planet, an award-winning production company focused on producing natural history, conservation, and investigative TV series and feature documentaries for global broadcast. Malaika directs, produces, and hosts films on subjects like wildlife trafficking, endangered species conservation, and environmental equity for major networks including National Geographic, the BBC, Discovery Channel, and Al Jazeera. She has served on the Expert Advisory Council for the Royal Foundation's Earthshot Prize, is brand ambassador for the Global Peace Dividend Initiative, consultant on the Wildlife Trust of India's Manta Conservation Initiative, and frequently works on conservation and anti-trafficking initiatives with international and national conservation organizations. Ms. Vaz will be speaking on combating marine trafficking and conserving India's oceanic species. Ms. Vaz, please.
Thank you so much, and it's such a pleasure to be here today. I'd like to thank the Andhra Pradesh Forest Department for inviting me to be a part of this event, but also for being pioneers in the way that you conserve wildlife and how you're setting a really positive example for different other forest departments across India and across the world. So today I'm going to be talking about combating marine trafficking. Let me just share my screen with you. Can you see it all right? Is that playing on the screen all right?
We cannot see, Malaika.
You can't? Hold on. Let me try that again. I think I need to enable permission somewhere.
I guess. May I request Dr. Tripathi to just log off from this, stop sharing his screen, maybe because of that.
Maybe.
Yeah, if you can try once again.
Sorry. Yes.
Right, right. Thank you.
Let me just try that again. No, give me 1 second. I'll try with my permissions. I'm going to ask someone from my team to help out because it's saying that it doesn't work right now. Hold on.
Share the presentation with us so that we can share it from here.
Okay, I will just email it to you.
Email it to Anand.
Just mail it to me. Yeah, meanwhile, I guess, meanwhile, we can have some queries also. I guess some of the queries we have already received in the comment section. So if you can just kindly show the comment section, we can take some of the queries. Our guest speakers can also answer some of the queries, please. Comment section చూపించండి. పైన ఇంకా పైన.
Foundation wants to take part in this conservation effort.
There is one query from Ms. Farida Tampal. She asks about the individual whale shark patterns, the variation in the individual whale shark patterns. Do they vary? This is addressed to Ms.Clara, I guess.
Yeah, so each individual has a different spot pattern. They're like their form of identity, like our fingerprint. So yeah, normally you would take a picture from the pectoral area and the fifth gill, and then you would, with the identification software, use 12 to 14 spots, for instance, and then it would give you a match with an individual.
Okay. Right, Clara. I hope you got the reply, Farida, and you're satisfied with the answer. Okay, I guess next query we have got from Mr. Rajashekhar Bandi. Mr. Rajashekhar, he works from the for IACR Tirupati, and he has been working on citizen science initiatives in the state of Andhra Pradesh also. He is asking about acoustics-based systematic surveys or monitoring of whale sharks being done in Maldives. Any information regarding that?
So yeah, for now the only way to go forward for us to monitor the population is through photo identification process. Tagging is forbidden in the country. So currently there's no tagging studies for manta rays or whale sharks, for instance, only for turtles.
Okay, right. I guess we have another query from Ms. Farida Tampal regarding throwing some light on the impacts of climate change on this species. This seems to be quite an interesting one. Impact on migration, food availability, etc. Any lights you can throw regarding that?
Yeah, so I do think, I mean, whale sharks do have a high tolerance to changes in temperature, so they can they can dive down to almost 2,000 meters, and water could be down to 3 degrees Celsius down there, and then in surface waters, for instance, in the Maldives, we have days of 30 degrees. But I know that they're starting to be sighted in other regions, for instance, in the Azores. So I guess as the waters are warming up, slowly we're seeing like this movement towards higher latitudes. And then, yeah, regarding plankton, I've just shared here one of the references, which has interesting information regarding how there could be a restructure in the plankton communities due to the climate change, and this can modify entire food webs.
Yeah, right. Thank you, Clara.
Welcome.
I think we have one more query. This is from Dr. Robin Vijayan from ISCR Tirupati. His team works with the genetics and acoustics of various species. One of his colleagues, Ms. Isha, she works on using acoustic methods to estimate population sizes of marine mammals in the west coast. And Mr. Rajabandi, again, one of his colleagues, works with citizen. He is happy to engage with our researchers and forest wardens. So not of a query, more of information, I guess. I guess these are the queries. Clara has herself answered few of the queries, I guess. So we'll just give us 1 minute. I guess we are ready with the presentation of Malaika.
Okay. I'm just gonna very quickly, I don't know if you're just still trying to reply to one of the questions. So yeah, there's two. So there's genetic studies carried out, and they mentioned there's two major subpopulations. So we would have the Atlantic one and the Indo-Pacific one.
Some query.
She's answering something directly. So that she can put it in the chat box.
Okay. Yeah. Just a moment. Malaika, your presentation, we are just trying to open it. If in case, meanwhile, if you can tell some of your experience or can start something, will be good. Yeah.
I have to say it's ironic that the one filmmaker on the panel can't get her presentation to open up, but sometimes I guess that is how it is. So as I was saying earlier, I'm going to be talking about marine trafficking. And I actually came to Andhra Pradesh for the first time in 2016 because we were doing a project on fishing cats. And that's when I found out about, the trade in manta rays specifically and sharks and different other marine species from Andhra Pradesh. So I began to follow the trade all the way from India to Myanmar and then to the markets of Hong Kong and China. And I think one of the things that I realized is that, a lot of the places across India's coastline have become prime source destinations for a lot of wildlife products, to the point that even Chinese traders often visit these Indian shores, and we've met with fishermen, we've met with traders who actually interacted with foreign buyers who come to these shows because of the availability of different kinds of marine products. So once the presentation loads, I'll show you a couple of pictures from our investigation. But I think one really important aspect for us as filmmakers is to figure out ways to obviously tell the stories that matter, but then also collaborate with scientists and collaborate with forest departments. Because what often happens is we work on a documentary on marine trafficking, but then afterwards, very often these species get their television time, but it's very difficult to protect them in tangible ways if we don't work with scientific organizations. So that's something that we've definitely been doing over the last few years, including through an association with the Wildlife Trust of India. I worked on a documentary on manta rays, and after the documentary was screened on National Geographic, we were able to get funding from the Wild Aid Foundation that's based in the United States, and then work with the Wildlife Trust of India, which is an incredible team of researchers led by Saja and John. And together we were able to do a baseline data survey across all of the landing sites in India. So Andhra Pradesh was one of them, in Kerala, in different parts of Gujarat, Andaman and Nicobar Islands, different parts of the country. And the goal was to understand not just from a trade perspective, but also from a fisher's perspective, what is the demand for these animals, and how can we, strike a balance between conserving these species in the long run, but also keeping the communities who depend on these animals compensated? How do we figure out ways to ensure that they have alternative means of livelihood if the trade is to be banned from a policy perspective? Anansa, is it playing by any chance?
Yeah, Malaika, can you try again and just share once from your screen? I guess it will be open now. If you can just try and share from your screen.
Let me try.
We are having some accessibility issues, it seems.
It just says that I need permissions. I don't know why it's not giving me permissions. Were you able to open it on your side?
No. Is asking some permissions actually.
Even for you?
Not able to share your screen from your side, huh?
No, not from my side. Is it possible from your end?
No, from our side.
No?
Just accept your video and send it across. There is some permission issue.
I'm just messaging you. Just check your WhatsApp.
Yes.
Send it by WhatsApp otherwise to Anant.
I have shared the video with him on email, so that should work. Is it because it's a Keynote file? Just because that is...
Maybe because of that. If you can just check and reply.
Okay, I'll just send it to Wildlife.
With all the permissions, yeah.
It's been sent. Yes. So in the meanwhile, maybe I can talk through some of the things, then I can run through the images later. So I think with the whale shark story, actually, I think there's a lot to learn from the world of manta ray conservation. And I'm going to use a case study of what we found out about manta ray conservation over our investigation. So when we started, documenting the trade in manta rays in Andhra Pradesh in 2016, initially we started off at the landing sites in Kakinada and in different other places along the coast. And eventually we realized that we wanted to trace the pipeline all the way from India to Myanmar, finally to Hong Kong, and then back to China. And after what happened was that we were working on this in Hong Kong, and we received a call from the Save Our Seas Foundation saying that a consignment of about 80 kilograms of gill plates, which is an endangered species, a vulnerable species, was found in Manipur. So to find manta ray gill plates in a place like Manipur was very strange. But it turns out that manta ray traffickers, these trafficking networks, were exploiting the lack of information about marine species and marine trafficking in the Northeast to traffic animals all the way from places like Andhra Pradesh and Chennai, all the way to the Northeast. And then from the Northeast, that would be the gateway to Myanmar and China and Hong Kong. So one of the biggest takeaways from that experience was that those gill plates were not apprehended by the forest department. It was actually apprehended initially by the armed forces, and the armed forces then sent the pictures to the forest department, and the forest department was able to identify it, and they were able to then take the person to the customs department. And I think for me, when my team and I filmed this, what we learned was that it's so important to have cross-sectoral collaboration on these issues, especially when it comes to wildlife trafficking, because it's not possible for the forest department to be in every part of the country. It's not possible for the marine fisheries department to be everywhere, but the armed forces are in certain places. You have different kinds of paramilitary forces in other places. And in this particular case, the Assam Rifles, which is a paramilitary organization, was able to work with the forest department. So since then, we've done trainings with armed forces personnel in some of these sensitive border areas, and we've learned that if the forest department and if civil society organizations can equip these border areas with information on what these species are, that they can apprehend them when the consignment comes across the border, a lot of difference can be made. Because I think, in places like Andhra Pradesh and Chennai, people know what, a whale shark fin looks like. People know what a manta ray gill plate looks like. But in remote parts of the country where there's no access to the ocean, very often that information is not available. So it's important to provide those departments with the right kind of training and the right kind of infrastructure support as well to, apprehend that. And then secondly, I think with the whale shark, at least there's a policy protection, but with regard to combating marine trafficking at large in India, it's important to get these animals listed inside India's Wildlife Protection Act, because what happened in this particular situation was that these animals were being trafficked, but even after the consignment of 80 kilograms, which represents many, many, many animals being killed, there was no kind of policy intervention, there was no kind of legislative intervention that was possible, because India, while being a signing member of these international treaties and these international organizations like CITES, if we don't have the right domestic policy protections, if we don't have the right kind of enforcement information at a local level, it's really difficult to translate that into real deterrence for these traffickers. And I think when hopefully the pictures open up, I can tell you the difference in our opinion between tackling small-scale fishers and tackling large-scale wildlife trafficking firms. And I say the word firms because a lot of them operate with other businesses. A lot of them are also trafficking guns, trafficking different kinds of drugs. So the trade in wildlife is often linked to the trade in other kinds of species and other kinds of, banned products. In fact, when I was in Guangzhou in China, we went into a shop where there was a lot of whale shark fins. Some of it was from India, some of it was from other countries in Asia. And what they said to us was that, we use this to fuel some of the other kinds of things that we're buying. So I think this is something that should be combated at the highest levels, understanding how do we provide leniency to fishers who are unintentionally often catching these animals, and provide them with alternative ways of compensation, as we've discussed today in this webinar. But also, how do we activate some of the highest criminal justice systems in the country? How do we work with the police and with different other kinds of organizations in India and internationally to apprehend the criminal syndicates that are creating a demand for whale shark fins or manta ray gill plates? I think there's an important distinction that needs to be had there. And I mean, even in storytelling, as filmmakers, so often we have to be conscious of the fact that we are not victimizing the fishermen who are really just trying to put 3 meals on the table for their families. That's a mistake that a lot of people have made in the past, where they said that the fishermen should just stop killing manta rays, just stop killing whale sharks. But it's about figuring out ways to represent their story in important ways. Did you receive that, Anand sir? Is there any problem with the screen sharing from your end? Have you been able to get that? I can't hear. I guess I'll just continue. And another thing that I learned when I was in China, when it comes to the traditional Chinese medicine demand for shark fins, for whale shark fins, and for manta rays, is that a lot of the time they say that this is because of ancient culture and traditions in China. But what we did was that we went in and we met with the traditional doctors themselves. We met with the people who have been practicing traditional Chinese medicine for many years. And they said that actually in traditional Chinese medicine, very often there's no little scripture that says that we need whale sharks and soup so that it will help human health. It's actually a business demand that's been created by traders in Asia. It's been created by big business interests in Asia. And it's been said that it's traditional Chinese medicine very often, so that it's given this layer of protection in terms of culture. But I think it's so important, as civil society, for us to combat wildlife trafficking in our country, but also in other countries all across the world. So when I worked in this film with National Geographic called Pang Yu Soy, which is the Chinese word for manta ray gill plates, what we did was that we worked with the Wildlife Trust of India and with different other bodies, including CMFRI, to understand more about the species and to work on a policy document. We are currently waiting for the policy document to go to the Ministry of Environment and Forests, and hopefully we can get these animals to receive more protection under India's laws. But then also, how do we combat the trade in whale sharks and manta rays from the China perspective? And I think that's where storytelling can come in. So we were able to create shorter cut downs of our film, like 3 to 5 minutes long. And we took those films into China to educate the next generation of young people, so that the next time they are at a family event and someone serves them a soup with whale shark in it, or someone serves them, manta rays in their food, they can say that actually these species are protected, they are being trafficked illegally, and even from a human health perspective, consuming wild animals like whale sharks, consuming wild animals like sharks and manta rays is not good. So I think having people understand the public health side of things, the fact that this is a public health issue as much as it is an environmental issue, is critical right now. I mean, for example, the whole corona thing that we've all been dealing with for the last few years, that came out of the very same wildlife markets where I've seen whale sharks and manta rays. And I think we need to start understanding how wildlife trafficking directly feeds into public health issues and try to make that case when it comes to conserving these species in our country. And I think I'd like to say also that working with different organizations and sharing information is so critical, because right now, even though there are many organizations that have done research on whale sharks, manta rays, different other kinds of wildlife trafficking, so often that data is lost inside someone's computer somewhere. And when we had this recent elasmobranch consultation with CMFRI, one of the biggest points that was brought up was that different organizations that are working on marine species protection in India and working on wildlife trade management in India need to work collaboratively to share information, to share our data sets, and to make sure that we're actually working collaboratively. So with the current project that I am working on with the Wildlife Trust of India, that I'm co-leading with Sergeant John, what we are going to be doing is, besides publishing this paper that will be peer-reviewed and will be published, and besides appealing to the forest departments for policy protection, we also hope to share our data set with other scientists so that they can use it for their own purposes. And I think the world of filmmaking has something that it can teach the world of science, in that the more you share information, the more conservation can be done truly at a national level. And I think my investigation and my team's investigation of wildlife trafficking, all the way from Andhra Pradesh to Chennai to Myanmar to Hong Kong to China,
Malaika,
Yes.
sorry for the interruption. Only thing is that PPT is not accessible. Probably it's in a different formatting system. Can you share some visuals?
Yeah, sure. I can try to.
Instead of putting it in a formatting kind of thing, just share some visuals and you can share your presentation like that.
Okay, all right. Let me see if I can open up the video. I think it's because it's Mac versus Windows formatting. Sometimes that happens. I have a trailer to the film that I worked on that I will just open up. Hopefully that works.
Mine, but you can also try from your side.
Yes. One second. Just give me 1 second. Unfortunately, there's some issue with the video sharing for me on WebEx. This hasn't happened before, so it's just not letting me play anything for some reason, saying that I need to access.
Yes, we are also trying from this end.
Yes. Yeah, so as I was saying earlier, if you are able to share the video and the materials, that's fine. But otherwise, I'm happy to talk through things as well. I think the need for collaboration is really important, and the need for storytelling from India. When we first made our documentary, Pam You Saw, it was one of the first films on manta ray trafficking. And when the film went out onto television and audiences saw that we have whale sharks in our country and we have manta rays and sharks, people were surprised because so often we associate these beautiful animals with the Maldives or with Indonesia or with other countries. People don't assume that you can actually see these animals in our own country. And I've been scuba diving since I was 12, so for about 15 years, 12, 13 years now. And one of the things I've realized is that India has such incredible marine biodiversity, and it's important to use the power of filmmaking and storytelling to draw more people in so that we can have more ecotourism here. Because, there's a tagline of worth more alive. And if you think about it, the average money that you can make from a whale shark once it's been killed is very, very little. But the kind of money that you can make if a species is protected, and if you have hundreds and hundreds of people coming every year from across the world, it's completely different. And I think that's important to make sure that we truly work to promote India's wildlife and promote India's marine biodiversity. Because when we think about wildlife in our country, we think about ranthambore and tigers. But if people can understand that you can dive with different kinds of marine animals, not just in the Andamans and in Goa, but also hopefully in the years to come in parts of Andhra Pradesh and other parts of the east coast of India, I think that would be an incredible opportunity. And one thing that we've realized is that very often the same communities that are traffickers, the same communities that are fishermen, often have so much indigenous knowledge, have a wealth of perspectives and a wealth of knowledge about different species. And they are the best people to be tourism managers. They are the best people to be taking forward ecotourism in a country. So I think if we have the emergence of that industry in India, we will hopefully be able to have employment for these communities as well, where they can have a dignified income. And when we were talking to a couple of communities and we were having a screening of our film, someone asked me, why should we stop killing manta rays and whale sharks if it's providing us with an income? And I think the answer to that is we have to figure out a way for these animals to be around for future generations. And if we don't, that income is going to go anyway. Whether it's now, whether it's in 10 years, that income is going to go anyway if we completely deplete the resources in the ocean and they're no longer available for a fisherman to even receive. So either way, sustainably managing these fish stocks, sustainably managing these endangered species, and working with communities and the government, I think is of critical importance right now.
Unfortunately, Malaika, there is some technical issue. We are not able to open your presentation. Format, because .key format you have given the PPT, which is not being able to open in our your system here. So I guess you can continue with your talk. It's quite unfortunate for us also that such interesting presentation of yours we are not able to see and learn from that. If you have anything, you can please continue and tell us about your experience and knowledge sharing. I guess that is the best we can do right now. and maybe some other queries which are there, you can answer them.
Absolutely. And what I'll do is I will send your team, Anand sir, a 54-minute version of the documentary that we have produced on manta ray trafficking. And I would appreciate it if you can share it with everyone who's present here today so that they can watch the film on their own time later. And you can see some of the learnings that we had about marine trafficking in the country. So after this talk, I will share the link to the film with everyone and you can have a look through that. But I think really what I want to conclude with saying is that when it comes to combating wildlife trafficking, we need to have a sense of urgency about it because the scale of the trade is so large. I mean, having gone to Hong Kong and China, you walk into one shop and there are thousands and thousands of whale sharks and sharks that are being killed. I've been diving for many years now and I've never seen even a fraction of those species underwater. So you can imagine the extent of the trafficking that's happening all across the country, and specifically in Andhra Pradesh, where there's a lot of marine heritage. And I think there's an opportunity for Andhra Pradesh to emerge. In many ways, it already is, but to further emerge as a conservation leader in the marine space, given the amount of biodiversity that the state has, both in the oceans and terrestrially. And I'm happy to answer any questions about what I've learned about wildlife trafficking through our investigation. Once we are done with the policy report that we've worked on as well, we'll be sharing it with different organizations, including and entities, including the Andhra Pradesh Forest Department, because our belief is that, we started off by making a film about marine trafficking. Then we worked with scientists to have a scientific data survey, a baseline data survey about trafficking across the country. And now we are working with policymakers, not just at the legislative level to get these animals listed, but how do we enforce that? So I think it's truly a collaborative approach when it comes to wildlife trafficking. And there's a lot of opportunity here for everyone to work together. Thanks so much. And I look forward to sharing the film with you as well.
Thank you very much, Malaika. We have been watching your works and the wonderful documentaries which you are preparing, lots of research, lots of details into that, and which are like an eye-opener for us also. We would love to collaborate with you in future regarding the marine conservation, or even for that matter, terrestrial conservation also, any of the species. So definitely we look forward to working with you in future. And I wish you all the best for your future endeavors. Your presentation, unfortunately, we have missed out on it today. Hopefully, next time we'll be taking more care and we'll rectify the mistakes which have happened today. Looking forward to see you again and work with you in future. Thank you so much.
Look forward to it. Thank you.
Malaika, I just have a couple of questions. What exactly documentaries have you done on the Eastern Coast?
So we worked on a film on manta ray trafficking, and that was all across Kakinada. We went to different other parts of Chennai as well, and then we finally went to China and Hong Kong. So that was the one big documentary. And we worked with a lot of local scientists and researchers on this. And we went to the shores of Kakinada multiple times, to the point that the local fishermen knew us by name and were inviting us to their weddings. But I think we spent a lot of time along the coast of Andhra Pradesh filming, including going out to sea with some of the trawlers to understand the scale of the fishing happening. I've also worked to document the fishing cat in Andhra Pradesh. That was a really special experience to do that along with Sanctuary Asia. But I do think that, there's a huge need for more documentation of Andhra Pradesh. When I first came to Andhra Pradesh, I think someone said to me, how come you're going there? Is there even wildlife? And I said, there's a wealth of wildlife. It's not just Ranthambore, it's not just, the forests of Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra, but Andhra Pradesh has so much biodiversity. And I would be happy to collaborate with the Forest Department on figuring out a communications campaign and a strategy to help tell more stories about this undiscovered but incredible region and all of the biodiversity and the initiatives that the Forest Department is doing to protect this biodiversity for future generations.
Yeah, we would be looking forward to that.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Again, I now invite Shri Selvam sir for giving the vote of thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Anand. It was very indeed an interesting, enriching presentations on this International Whale Shark Day 2022. Firstly, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to Sri Y.M.Reddy sir, Principal CCF and Chief LF for Andhra Pradesh, for providing emphasis on organizing this program. I express my sincere thanks to Dr. Shanti Priya Pandey ma'am, additional PCCF Wildlife, for evincing much interest and providing guidance for this program. So, ma'am talked about various initiatives taken and efforts towards conservation of whale shark in Andhra Pradesh. And a good start has been made, and we are looking forward a lot of things happening in the future in Andhra Pradesh. Today we are very fortunate to have 3 guest speakers from various parts of country as well as world. Firstly, Ms.Clara Canovas Perez, Operation Manager, Maldives, Whale Shark Conservation and Research Program, presented information regarding the biology, ecology, conservation of species, citizen science initiative in the Maldives, and threats. So definitely Andhra Pradesh Forest Department welcomes you to collaborate on initiating detailed surveys and studies regarding the whale shark conservation along the Andhra Pradesh coast. Thank you, ma'am. Our next guest speaker is Dr. Basudev Tripathy, scientist, Zoological Survey of India, Pune, spoke on the challenges and opportunities of the whale shark conservation in India. It was indeed a very interesting experience for us to listen to your work and talk where you shared your insight and knowledge on the issue of marine conservation in India, sir. Thank you once again, sir. Our youngest speaker today, Ms. Malaika Vaz, unfortunately not able to see your presentation, but your talk given a great insight to the work you are undertaking, especially on documenting illegal marine species trafficking as well as awareness generation. So finally, this program would not have been organized without the support of senior officers from head office, the circle heads of Visakhapatnam, Rajahmundry and Guntur. I also express special gratitude to Sri Anand Shankar, DF Visakhapatnam, who provided much assistance and support in organizing this webinar. I also express thanks to Srimati Nagamunishwari, DCF Wildlife, and Sri Ramachandra Rao, DF Guntur, for coordinating and making arrangements. I also thank Sri Anil Swachhandra Corporation for hosting the webinar and live streaming it. Finally, many thanks to all the participants who have participated today and raised interesting queries all through the webinar. Thank you once again. Thank you very much, and happy International World Shark Day. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you all for responding at such short notice and being with us today. Thank you, all of them.
Very much. Have a nice day.